"You have got to be kidding me," Dr. Valeriana Starweaver muttered, her iridescent scales flickering in frustration as she stared at the holographic display. The Centaurian scientist's third eye twitched, a sure sign she was about to have one of her infamous meltdowns. This cannot possibly be correct. Run the sequence analysis again. Her research assistant, a towering Andromedian named K-Thrix, rolled all 7 of his eyes simultaneously. "We've run it 17 times, Doctor. The results are consistent. Human DNA contains." "Don't say it," Valeriana snapped, her tail lashing behind her. "Don't you dare say it out loud. If the High Council gets wind of this, they'll think we've lost our minds, or worse, they'll believe us." The laboratory aboard the research vessel Eternal Curiosity had seen its fair share of breakthrough discoveries over the decades, but nothing quite like this. The room was cluttered with the usual array of genetic sequencers, quantum computers, and enough coffee cups to suggest that neither sleep nor sanity were particularly valued commodities among the research team. K-Thrix's crystalline exoskeleton chimed softly as he moved closer to the display. But the evidence is irrefutable. The humans' junk DNA, the parts they dismissed as evolutionary leftovers, it's not junk at all. It's... A manual, Valeriana finished, dropping her head into her hands. A biological instruction manual written in base 4 genetic code, containing detailed information about everything. She looked up at the ceiling, as if expecting the universe itself to laugh at her. Who does that? Who looks at the building blocks of life itself and thinks, "You know what this needs? A README file." The discovery had started innocently enough. The Galactic Scientific Coalition had commissioned a thorough study of Earth's dominant species, hoping to understand how such a seemingly primitive race had managed to survive countless near-extinction events. Nobody expected to find what appeared to be deliberately encoded information hidden within their genome. "Should we compile the full translation?" K-Thrix asked, his voice carrying that unique mix of academic excitement and existential dread that seemed to characterize all major scientific discoveries. Valeriana sighed dramatically. "Why not? We're already neck-deep in career suicide. Might as well make it spectacular." She waved her hand, activating the quantum processor. "Start with Section 1. The holographic display flickered, and lines of text began to materialize. "Congratulations. If you're reading this, you've finally figured out how to decode genetic data properly. We've been waiting a while for this moment. First things first, yes, this is exactly what you think it is. We left this here for you to find. Who are we? Well, that's a bit complicated. It's written in Universal Standard," K-Thrix observed, his crystalline structure taking on a pale blue hue of confusion. "A language that didn't exist when humans evolved. How is that possible?" "Oh, it gets better," Valeriana laughed, the kind of laugh that suggested she was one unexpected discovery away from a complete nervous breakdown. "Keep reading. You're probably wondering about the language thing. Don't worry too much about it. The encoding adapts to be readable by whoever finds it. Neat trick, right? We thought so too. Now about those humans you've been studying. They're not exactly what you think they are. Sure, they evolved naturally on Earth, that part's true. But somewhere along the line, someone decided to do a little upgrading. Think of it as a cosmic software update, except the software is biological, and the update included a few special features we thought might come in handy." "This is insane," Valeriana muttered, pacing the laboratory. "We're reading the equivalent of cosmic release notes left by some ancient race that apparently decided to use human DNA as their personal thumb drive." K-Thrix raised one of his appendages. "Actually, Doctor, according to this next section, they used it more like a cloud storage system. Apparently every human carries a complete copy of the data, with redundant backups spread across the population. It's quite elegant, really." "Why humans, you ask? Well, have you seen these creatures? They're practically indestructible. They can survive in almost any environment, heal from horrific injuries, and they just keep going. Perfect for long-term data storage. Plus, they have this charming tendency to spread everywhere they can reach, which makes for excellent data redundancy." The text continued to scroll, revealing increasingly bizarre information about humanity's accidental role as organic data carriers. The upgrades explain so much: their remarkable adaptability, their inexplicable ability to survive things that should have killed them, their weird tendency to try to befriend literally anything they encountered. "Look at this section," K-Thrix chimed excitedly. "It explains why humans can eat almost anything without dying. Apparently their digestive system was enhanced to break down virtually any organic matter. just in case they ended up somewhere with unfamiliar food sources. There's even a subsystem that lets them derive some nutritional value from things that should be poisonous. Valeriana sprawled in her hover chair, watching the text continue to scroll. That explains that horrible earth beverage they call coffee. No natural species should be able to not only survive that, but actually become more functional after consuming it. Now, you might be wondering why we didn't just tell the humans about all this. Well, we did try, sort of. Where do you think all those ancient myths about gods giving gifts to humanity came from? But humans have this adorable habit of either completely missing the point or taking things way too literally. After the seventh civilization convinced itself they needed to build enormous pyramids, not what we were going for, by the way, we decided to just let them figure things out at their own pace. The next section of the document went into extensive detail about various features that had been installed in human DNA. Enhanced pattern recognition? Check. Improved problem-solving capabilities? Absolutely. The ability to form emotional bonds with literally anything. That was apparently a bug that became a feature. This explains so much, Valeriana mused, watching the data stream past. Like why humans can look at the deadliest predator on a planet and think I'm going to pet it. They're literally programmed to try to connect with everything they encounter. K-Thrix's crystalline form vibrated with amusement. Or why they respond to any new discovery by immediately trying to either eat it, fight it, or mate with it. Don't remind me of the first contact protocols we had to implement after that incident with the Proximate ambassador. Who could have predicted they'd try to flirt with a sentient gas cloud? The document continued its revelation of humanity's inadvertent role as the galaxy's most successful backup drive. By the way, we should probably mention the redundancy systems we put in place. You know how humans seem to pop up everywhere, establishing colonies in the most ridiculous and inhospitable places? That's not just their natural curiosity at work. The genetic code includes a subtle imperative to spread out as much as possible. It's basically RAID storage, but with people. Oh, and about their weird obsession with space travel? Yeah, that's us too. Sorry, not sorry. We needed to make sure the data would survive, even if something happened to their home planet. The way they took to it, though, that was all them. We just gave them a little nudge toward the stars. They're the ones who decided to turn it into their species-defining characteristic. Valeriana's scales had shifted through so many colors of distress that she looked like a malfunctioning light display. Do you realize what this means for xenoanthropology? Every major human characteristic that we've spent centuries studying. It's all because some ancient race decided to use them as organic hard drives. The paper practically writes itself, K-Thrix mused. Humanity, a comprehensive analysis of history's most elaborate data storage solution, though we might want to work on that title. The text continued to scroll, revealing more about humanity's accidental role in the galaxy's most ambitious data storage project. Now, you're probably wondering what kind of information was so important that we needed to encode it into an entire species' DNA. Well, that's the fun part. Keep reading, and you'll find everything from the unified theory of existence to the best recipe for pancakes in the universe. Yes, we included pancakes. Trust us, they're important. We also threw in the solutions to what you probably consider some of the greatest scientific mysteries in the universe. Dark matter? Sorted? The reconciliation of quantum mechanics and general relativity? Done. The reason why cosmic strings tend to vibrate in B-flat. Mostly because we thought it would be funny, but we included the math anyway. As they delved deeper into the document, it became clear that humanity's seemingly illogical traits were actually carefully designed features. Their ability to find patterns in random noise, a side effect of the data compression algorithms. Their tendency to survive against impossible odds, built-in data protection protocols, their habit of naming everything they encountered, from their spaceships to their cleaning robots, part of an elaborate indexing system. Hold on, Valeriana said suddenly, her scales shifting to the deep purple of realization. If all of this is true, then every human alive is carrying around the solutions to the greatest scientific mysteries of our age in their DNA, along with what appears to be a collection of comedy routines from extinct civilizations, and something called the ultimate sourdough starter recipe, K-Thrix confirmed, scanning through the index. A word of caution, we know you're probably tempted to just extract all this information and be done with it. But here's the thing, it doesn't work that way. The data is integrated with human consciousness in ways we're pretty sure you haven't figured out how to decode yet. Want proof? Ask any human child why the sky is blue. They'll probably give you some delightfully wrong explanation, but somewhere in their DNA is the complete mathematical proof of atmospheric light scattering. The information reveals itself gradually, usually through what humans call hunches or gut feelings. Sometimes it manifests as dreams or random bursts of inspiration. This is why humans occasionally make bizarre logical leaps that turn out to be correct, or come up with solutions that seem to defy conventional reasoning. They're not actually pulling these ideas out of nowhere, they're accidentally accessing fragments of the database we hid in their genes. Valeriana stared at the display, her scientific worldview crumbling around her. So every time a human has had a crazy idea that turned out to be revolutionary, they were inadvertently accessing the largest database in known space. K3 finished. Which explains why they tend to have their best ideas either in the shower, right before falling asleep, or after consuming ridiculous amounts of caffeine. Those are probably the conditions most conducive to accessing the encoded data. The document continued with what could only be described as a cosmic FAQ section. Q, why didn't you just build a conventional data storage system? Oh, we did. Several, actually. But have you tried maintaining a computer system for millions of years? Biology is much better at self-replication and error correction. Plus, humans are surprisingly durable and come with built-in backup systems. Q, isn't it unethical to use an entire species as a data storage system? We prefer to think of it as a symbiotic relationship. They got enhanced capabilities and a subtle nudge toward the stars. We got reliable data storage. Besides, have you seen what they've done with those capabilities? They turn survive anywhere into an art form. Q, what happens if humans find out about this? A, they probably already have, multiple times. But thanks to another handy feature we installed, they tend to dismiss the idea as too ridiculous to be true and go back to doing whatever improbable thing they were attempting. It's a self-preserving mechanism we're particularly proud of. As they reached the end of the initial document, both scientists sat in stunned silence, trying to process the implications of their discovery. Humanity, the species that had puzzled xenobiologists for generations with their improbable abilities and inexplicable behaviors, were essentially organic computers running a cosmic backup system. We can never publish this, Valeriana said finally, her scales settling into a defeated shade of gray. Why not? K3 asked, though his crystalline structure suggested he already knew the answer. Because the moment we do, every research institution in the galaxy will want to start experimenting on humans to access the data. And knowing humans, they'll probably take it as a challenge and start doing ridiculous things just to prove they control their own destiny. Just then, the laboratory door slid open, revealing Dr. Sarah Chen, the human representative on their research team. She was carrying what appeared to be her 7th cup of coffee for the day. Hey, what are you two looking at? You seem worried. Please tell me you haven't discovered another fundamental law of physics that doesn't work the way we thought it did. I haven't had enough coffee to deal with rebuilding our understanding of the universe today. Valeriana and K3 exchanged glances. The human stood there, casually drinking a beverage that should be toxic, wearing a shirt with an incomprehensible Earth meme on it, probably planning to go rock climbing or skydiving or some other inadvisable activity after her shift, all while unknowingly carrying the secrets of the universe in her DNA. Nothing important, Valeriana said quickly, discreetly deactivating the display. Just reviewing some routine genetic sequences. Very boring stuff. Definitely nothing that fundamentally changes our understanding of human evolution or explains why your species can survive things that would kill any reasonable life form. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You're acting weird, both of you. But weird is normal for scientists, so I'm just going to assume everything's fine and go back to my experiments. Oh, by the way, I had this crazy idea about quantum entanglement while I was in the shower this morning. Want to hear it? As Sarah launched into an explanation that would probably revolutionize their understanding of quantum mechanics, Valeriana and K3 shared another knowing look. Somewhere in the vast database hidden in Sarah's DNA was probably the complete mathematical proof of whatever theory she was casually explaining between sips of coffee. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and it had chosen humanity as the punchline. Note the research team's subsequent paper, Statistical Analysis of Random Genetic Variations in Human DNA, made no mention of their actual discovery. However, it did include an unusually detailed section about the importance of backing up one's data, which caused several senior researchers to snort coffee through their various respiratory organs. 3 weeks after their incredible discovery. Valeriana found herself staring at Sarah across the ship's cafeteria, watching in horrified fascination as the human somehow managed to eat something that was definitely not meant for carbon-based life forms. Is that Jovian plasma fruit? K3 asked, his crystalline structure taking on the particular shade of green that indicated either nausea or existential dread. Sarah mumbled through a mouthful of the gently glowing food. Found it in the xenobiology lab's disposal bin. Figured it was worth a try. It's actually not bad, tastes like spicy oranges and static electricity. Valeriana's scales flickered in distress. That was marked for disposal because it's literally radioactive. Only a little bit, Sarah shrugged, taking another bite. Besides, I had this weird feeling it would be fine. Like some part of my brain just knew exactly how to metabolize it. Kathrix's crystalline form chimed in what could only be described as suppressed laughter. They'd been noticing these weird feelings of Sarah's a lot more since their discovery. Just last week, she'd correctly guessed the exact resonance frequency of a newly discovered quantum particle while half asleep during a staff meeting. Her explanation had been it just felt right, you know. The ship's intercom crackled to life, all senior research staff to the main laboratory. We have a situation. When they arrived at the lab, they found Dr. Prometheus Jones, another human researcher, standing in front of a holographic display with an expression that suggested he'd either just solved the mysteries of the universe or was having a stroke. Knowing humans, it could have been both. I figured it out, he announced, bouncing on his toes with barely contained excitement. I know why we can't achieve stable faster than light travel. We've been approaching it all wrong. See, if you look at space-time as a sort of, well, think of it like a cat's cradle made of quantum strings. As Prometheus launched into an explanation that somehow involved quantum mechanics, cat's cradle, and what he swore was a very relevant anecdote about his grandmother's knitting patterns, Valeriana and Kathrix exchanged knowing looks. Here was yet another human accidentally tapping into the vast database hidden in their DNA, probably triggered by whatever combination of sleep deprivation and caffeine Prometheus was running on. And that's why we need to braid the space-time continuum instead of trying to punch through it, Prometheus finished triumphantly, taking a swig from a mug that appeared to contain energy drink mixed with coffee and what might have been liquid nitrogen. The sad part was, his theory made perfect sense. It would revolutionize space travel if they could implement it. And he'd figured it out because he'd been thinking about knitting while sleep-deprived. Fascinating theory. Dr. Jones came a smooth voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to find Admiral Xylophone. Yes, that was actually his name. His species chose names based on Earth musical instruments they found pleasing of the Galactic Science Council standing there. His gelatinous form rippled in what might have been interest or indigestion. I'd very much like to know how you came up with it. Valeriana felt her scales turn the particular shade of mauve that indicated panic. The last thing they needed was the Science Council getting suspicious about humans' apparently infinite capacity for revolutionary scientific breakthroughs. Oh, you know how it is, Sarah jumped in, smoothly derailing the conversation. Prometheus always gets weird ideas when he's running on no sleep and too much caffeine. Last week he tried to convince us that consciousness is just spicy math. To be fair, Prometheus interjected, I still think I'm right about that one. The Admiral's gelatinous form wobbled thoughtfully. We've noticed an unusual pattern of breakthrough discoveries coming from human scientists lately. Very unusual discoveries. Almost as if they have access to information they shouldn't possibly have. Have you met humans? Kathrix chimed in, quite literally. Their entire scientific method seems to be do increasingly ridiculous things until the universe gives up and shows them how it works. It's terrifying but effective. Sarah nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, that's pretty much our standard procedure. If you think this is weird, you should have seen what happened when we figured out quantum tunneling. Did you know you can't actually lick a neutron star? Well, now we know. The Admiral's translucent form clouded slightly, a sign of confusion. But surely there must be some explanation for how humans consistently make these intuitive leaps that turn out to be correct. Sleep deprivation and spite, mostly Prometheus offered cheerfully, now adding what appeared to be powdered starlight to his horrifying beverage. The universe says something's impossible, and we take it personally. Valeriana watched in amazement as the two humans successfully convinced the Admiral that their species' scientific achievements were merely the result of sleep deprivation, caffeine abuse, and sheer stubbornness. It was technically true. In a way, those were indeed the conditions that seemed most conducive to accidentally accessing the cosmic database in their DNA. After the Admiral left, looking somehow more confused than when he'd arrived, Sarah turned to them with a grin. So are you ever going to tell us what you found in our genetic code 3 weeks ago? Valeriana's scales went through several colors of panic before settling on a sickly yellow. What? What do you mean? Oh, come on, Sarah laughed. You two have been acting weird ever since that day, and you get this funny look whenever one of us has a random breakthrough. Plus, I had this really vivid dream last night where some ancient aliens were using my DNA as a cosmic USB drive. Ridiculous, right? K-Thrix's crystalline form produced a sound like wind chimes in a panic. Completely ridiculous. Totally implausible. Definitely not something we discovered while analyzing human genetic sequences. Absolutely not something we're keeping quiet about because we're worried about the implications for human autonomy and dignity, Valeriana added quickly. Prometheus looked up from his drink, which was now glowing and possibly humming. You know what's really weird? I had the same dream, except in mine they explained that they chose humans, because we're basically the cockroaches of the galaxy, really hard to kill, and we get everywhere. That's not what we meant by optimized for survival and broad distribution, Valeriana blurted out, then immediately covered her mouth with all three hands. Sarah's grin widened. Ha, I knew it. So what else did you find? Any explanation for why we can eat basically anything? Or why we keep trying to pet dangerous animals? Oh, is there anything about why we all collectively decided that the platypus was perfectly normal but giraffes seem fake? As Sarah and Prometheus eagerly peppered them with questions, Valeriana and K-Thrix realized they probably should have guessed that humans would not only figure it out but also think it was the coolest thing ever. So wait, Prometheus said, now adding something that looked suspiciously like liquefied quantum uncertainty to his drink. You're telling me that every time I have a breakthrough while sleep-deprived, I'm actually accessing some ancient alien database hidden in my DNA. That's awesome. Although it does explain why all my best ideas come to me either in the shower or right before I pass out from exhaustion. We're not supposed to be telling you this, Valeriana hissed, her scales cycling through colors of distress so quickly she looked like a malfunctioning disco ball. Don't worry, Sarah assured her, casually taking another bite of her radioactive fruit. We're really good at knowing things we're not supposed to know. It's practically our species' hobby at this point. Besides, who would believe us if we told them? Oh hey, by the way. Turns out we're all actually organic supercomputers running the galaxy's biggest backup drive. They'd just assume we'd been reading too much science fiction again. K-Thrix's crystalline form had taken on the particular resonance that indicated resignation mixed with amusement. You're taking this remarkably well. Are you kidding? This is great, Prometheus exclaimed. It explains so much, like why humans can survive things that should definitely kill us, or why we keep having revolutionary ideas at 3 a.m. while eating cold pizza. We're not weird, we're feature-rich. And so the secret of humanity's true nature remains safe, protected by the simple fact that the truth was exactly the kind of ridiculous thing humans would make up. Whenever someone came too close to figuring it out, they'd inevitably dismiss it as too absurd to be real, just as the original programmers had intended. Meanwhile, humans continued doing what they did best, surviving impossible situations, making improbable scientific breakthroughs, and attempting to befriend everything they encountered, all while carrying the secrets of the universe in their DNA. And if they occasionally accessed cosmic knowledge while sleep-deprived or caffeine-addled, well, that was just another day in the life of humanity. After all, what better way to hide the universe's greatest database than in a species that would accidentally reinvent half of it anyway, just to prove they could? Postscript: Dr. Prometheus Jones's theory about consciousness being spicy math was later proven correct, though no one could quite explain how he'd arrived at that conclusion while running on 72 hours without sleep and a beverage that violated several laws of physics. The paper he published on it won a Galactic Science Award, despite or perhaps because of the fact that half the equations were written on napkins, and one crucial proof was scrawled on the back of a takeout menu.